So you would think that with the economy collapsing, with unemployment rising, with prices rising, with mass deportations and rounding innocent people up and sending them to gulags, you would think that the White House is a little busy, right? They got enough things on their plate that they're handling, destroying the country in 4 different ways. But they keep adding new horrors to the list. So let me show you this. This is reported in NBC News. Trump administration weighs drone strikes on Mexican cartels. The administration has increased surveillance flights over Mexico as it tries to track the powerful cartels that dominate the fentanyl trade. The Trump administration is considering launching drone strikes on drug cartels in Mexico as part of an ambitious effort to combat criminal gangs trafficking narcotics across the southern border, according to 6 current and former U.S. military, law enforcement, and intelligence officials with knowledge of the matter. Discussions among White House, Defense Department, and intelligence officials, which are still at an early stage, have included possible drone strikes against cartel figures and their logistical networks in Mexico with the cooperation of Mexico's government, the sources said. Now, let me just pause to point out here, this is off the table. Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, in no scenario would be like, yeah, America, come and do some airstrikes in my country. It's not happening. It's not happening. So I don't know what this article's thinking, even putting this line in here, but this is beyond the pale. Still, the administration has made no final decision and reached no definitive agreement about countering the cartels, and unilateral covert action without Mexico's consent has not been ruled out and could be an option of last resort. Because, you know, Trump has a real track record of following the rules. When Claudia Sheinbaum says, we're not doing that, they're saying, hey, he's considering just blowing her off completely and saying, yeah, we're going to go in there and do drone strikes. Again, I don't even know how to convey to you how beyond the pale we are right now. This is a sovereign government. This is our ally. We do a tremendous amount of trade with them. We've already had a war on drugs for decades, and now he wants to effectively militarize the war on drugs and do a war in Mexico. And then look, the other portion of this is, and everybody needs to understand this part too, Claudia Sheinbaum, like AMLO before her, is a social democrat. She's a leftist. She has an 85% approval rating. There's one thing we know for sure about U.S. empire. They don't like or respect any left-of-center governments in south of us, right? In this hemisphere. And we've done many coups of those governments. So my question for you is this a bit of a cover story? Is this a bit of a cover story where they really the goal is let's get rid of Claudia Sheinbaum, let's get rid of this government, but we'll do it under the guise of, oh no, bro, we're just going after the cartels. We're just going after the cartels. This is crazy. If Mexico and the United States proceed together with drone strikes or other action, it would not be the first time they have launched a joint effort to take on the cartels, nor would it be the first time that American military and intelligence worked in concert with Mexico's law enforcement and army. They're trying to normalize this in this article. But what the Trump administration is contemplating could be unprecedented both in the number of U.S. personnel involved and the use of American unmanned aircraft to bomb cartel personnel and assets. The other thing is, we simply don't know what the hell we're doing, right? Look at what's been happening in Yemen. They swore up, oh my God, we're getting the right targets, bro. We're getting the Houthis, bro. We're getting the bad guys, bro. Which, by the way, they're totally illegal in the first place. We shouldn't be going after them at all. But then you get the actual news coming out of there, and it's like, oh, you just killed a bunch of innocent people. Oh, you just bombed an apartment building that had a guy in it who you wanted, but it had his girlfriend and then a whole bunch of innocent people, and they blew it all up. The idea that this would be like hyper-targeted and you'd only be getting the really bad guys, that is absolute nonsense. It's not happening. You would destroy countless innocent people's lives. And then, by the way, as we've learned from history with this drug war, we've often made it way worse, right? We did what's called the decapitation strategy, where you go after, the big boss, and we did that with El Chapo, and what happened? That actually led to more violence in the streets of Mexico. There were more negative consequences after you took out El Chapo. Why? Because then you had rival gangs and rival leaders fighting in the street in order to determine who's going to be the heir apparent and who's going to run the drug cartel. So it made the situation objectively worse when you handled it in a hyper-militaristic way. And this stuff is all obvious. It's all obvious. If you actually cared about fixing the problem, we know what the answer is. Legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. exactly what happened during Prohibition. When alcohol was illegal, organized crime got incredibly powerful, and there was more violence and more crime in the streets because you pushed the product to the black market where gangsters were then in control and they got really wealthy over it. And there's no rule of law among the gangsters. When you legalize, tax, and regulate it, well, then you don't have people dying from bad batches of alcohol. You don't have rampant crime in the street. You have a legal, taxed, and regulated marketplace where it's more civilized, right? We already know the answers to these things. They don't care. Simply put, they are just warmongers. They're just warmongers. They want more war. He wants to be macho man, tough guy, bro. I'm taking on the world, bro. What happened? I thought half the time on the campaign trail, he said anti-war things. Now, you want an illegal war with Mexico? Administration officials and nominees have repeatedly refused to rule out drone strikes in public statements. The U.S. military and the CIA have dramatically stepped up surveillance flights over Mexico to collect intelligence in advance of what is likely to be a major campaign against the cartels, which the White House has labeled a threat to national security. The 6 sources said, the flights are being carried out with Mexico's approval, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has said. So she's allowing the surveillance, but obviously not going to allow any strikes. If you had to script a way to make the world abandon us quicker, I don't think you can come up with one, right? I mean, we're threatening Greenland, we're threatening Panama, we're threatening Denmark, we're threatening Iran, we're bombing Yemen, we're bombing Somalia, we're going to try another coup in Venezuela, now they're thinking about troops in Ecuador. Like, all these things are going on, and while we're doing a trade war, and now it's like, you're telling your neighbor, who's our top ally, who we trade with all the time, hey, by the way, we're going to violate your sovereignty and maybe do, like, massive airstrikes there. Who voted for this? Who supports this? Who supports this? And it's even more infuriating when we know what the solution is to the problem that they pretend they're trying to solve, which is legalize, tax, and regulate, put the cartels out of business. Instead, these idiots looked around and said, hey, we should try, like, a war on drugs. And they thought it's this, like, brilliant new thing. No, they just want to put it on steroids and human growth hormone and hyper-militarize it and lead to an actual literal hot war. I mean, guys, we're not getting through these next 4 years without absolute catastrophes. We're not. We're already witnessing a bunch of them. It's only going to get worse. And on the foreign policy front, it's going to get dramatically worse. I'm serious when I say, if you're in the military and you have a conscience, you need to resign. You need to step down. You need to be a conscientious objector. You need to say, look, man, I didn't sign up to bomb my neighbor, right? And they're going to get innocent people. They're going to ruin people's lives. You know, they're not going to get the right targets. Never mind the fact it's totally illegitimate in the first place. They're not even going to get congressional approval to do it, which would further make it illegal. So if you are tasked with doing something violent to Greenland or Panama or Mexico or Iran, you need to resign. History doesn't judge the "I was just following orders" reaction very well. You know, they don't accept that for good reason. Because at some point, your conscience has to step in. At some point, the Constitution has to step in and matter, right? So wake up, y'all. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.